Hello, my babies. As I've mentioned, this is your girl MamMaJ, aka MamMaJ. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and you are listening to MamMaJism. Thank you for deciding to listen in on this talk of love and honest conversation. So, let's get into it. By the time you finish this episode, you will know the books I choose to highlight in this new segment I like to call the Quarterly Book Review. I will give you a summary of each book, why I chose to highlight them, and what lessons I got out of the stories. Stick around if that is something that sounds interesting to you. But before we get into this new segment, I want to take a moment to thank you for taking the time to tune in each week. I know I don't always show up consistently, but when I do, you are there with open arms, ready to support me, and I thank you so much for that. But for the sake of time, that's all I wanted to say. I just really wanted to give my thanks. So let's hit it. Quarterly book review. It's the quarterly book review. Welcome to the newest segment of MamMaJism called the Quarterly Book Review. Y'all remember in episode 54 when I shared the top 5 books that I enjoyed in 2020? Well, as you all know, in 2020 I read over 50 books, and I was heartbroken to have had to narrow down the books to showcase in just 5. Like, that's 10% of the books I read. One tenth. Y'all get what I'm saying. It was such a small fraction of the books that I actually read, and there were so many more than I wanted to point out, but I couldn't because I didn't have the time. So to remedy that, I decided that this year I'm slowing things down a bit. I'm going to focus more on the types of books that I read and share with you, as opposed to just trying to figure out how many books I can consume within a year. I know that it can be over 50. That's great little fun fact for future icebreakers, but now it's time to really focus on the books that truly feed my spirit and my soul, which is what I'm really into the most in this stage in my life. So it's called the Quarterly Book Review because every 3 months I will choose books that I read within that time frame and highlight them and share it with you so that maybe you can put it on your list of books to read in the future. And so since we are officially in April, I decided it made the most sense to start this now. So it'll be every 3 months, which means there will be 4 quarterly book reviews each year. And I'm just excited to see what books I read and decide to share with you all. And if you have any book recommendations, please feel free to slide in the DMs and let me know, because I am always on the quest for a good book to read. So yeah. Okay, let's hop right into these books because they're good and I want to make sure I give enough time to talk about each one. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book is by Aiden Thomas called Cemetery Boys. Now I'm going to read the excerpt. So, Yadriel has summoned a ghost and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his true gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, he performs the ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set him free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie off some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants to let him leave. Okay, that was a lot. So again, I'm trying to keep this all as spoil-free as possible, so I can't go into any actual details as to what the story is about other than what they provide us on the back of the book. But I will say that I really enjoyed the fact that this book is all about the queer, not all about the queer experience, but the author himself is a queer and trans Latinx person. So I really liked that he pulled from personal experiences of wanting to prove himself And really, you don't see too many LGBTQA plus books. Well, you are starting to see more now, but a lot of people don't talk about them. You don't really see it too much on TV. And so I really enjoyed reading the representation as an ally, and that this story was centered around a queer person, and a queer person of color at that. And then you kind of get to know a little bit more about Dia de los Muertos, which I hope I'm saying that right, because that's pretty much what this book is centered around. And the first time that I had exposure to Dia de los Muertos is from that one Lizzie McGuire episode. If you know, you know. Shout out to Miranda's family. But yeah, so I think that this is a really good book. And the imagery, oh, beautiful. The artwork and stuff too, that if you go on the website, you'll see. It's really beautiful. And so the takeaways, so the main takeaway I got from this book is that at the end of the day, you really don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Of course, we have our moments where we want to show or prove that we are worthy. We get imposter syndrome and feel like we are not really who, we don't belong where we are, and that we have to prove ourselves to show that we really are. You don't have to do all that. Deep down in your heart, you know what the vibes are, you know who you are. And at the end of the day, real gonna recognize real. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone, boo. So that's where I got from that. From the next book is by Benjamin Alire Sands. Oh my gosh, I should have looked that up. But the book is called Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that excerpt. Aristotle is an angry teen with a brother in prison. Dante is a know-it-all who has an unusual way of looking at the world. When the two meet at the swimming pool, they seem to have nothing in common. But as the loners start spending time together, they discover that they share a special friendship, the kind that changes lives and lasts a lifetime. And it is through this friendship that Ari and Dante will discover the most important truths about themselves and the kind of people they want to be. Now, what I loved about this book was the complexities of the characters. I had moments where I really loved one and then couldn't stand the other, but I feel like that's a pretty good representation of the ebbs and flows of your pretty typical relationship, whether it be with a friend, a family member, or whatever. Well, at least that's how it goes for me. I have my days when I'm like, everybody is pissing me off right now. And that's just how I felt reading the book, which gave it like a realistic, refreshing feel for me, because I felt like the author didn't overdo the characters. Like, they had complexities and stuff, but it felt like it was like a pretty realistic turn for like a fictional character. I think that Benjamin did a really good job of like explaining in great detail what the characters were thinking, and you felt like you were right there inside of their brain with them, which is usually how most books are. But since this book is so like poetic, it just hit different. Like, I don't know how to explain it in any other way, and I don't want to, again, spoil, so I'll just leave it at that. And another thing that I really loved was the two different family dynamics between Ari, which is Aristotle, and Dante. So for Aristotle, his dad is a bit closed off, and he changed ever since he came back from serving in the Vietnam War. And his mom, is doing the best that she can to try and connect with her son. But there's a huge disconnect between them all because they never talk about his older brother who is in jail. And Ari doesn't even find out how his brother ended up in jail until like late in the book. So it's just kind of a whole lot of questioning and him trying to figure out like, what is it that my parents are so afraid of telling me? And as the story unfolds, it gets really interesting. And as for Dante, he has a really close relationship with both of his parents. He's basically like, they're all best friends. Like, he tells them everything. So it's really interesting to see the stark contrast between both families and how they come together and intertwine. It's really beautiful. And some of the lessons that I learned from the book is to never judge a book by its cover, of course, because as it stated in the summary, that like two seemingly different people, they end up coming together and, beautiful things happen. And also that we can't run away from who we are, because sometimes we might be afraid of the power that we possess, or we might be afraid that people don't understand our power, our true power. And, instead of running away from it, you want to embrace it, right? Yeah, that's really all I can say about that. I'm really trying not to spoil this, okay? Okay, and now on to the final book from the Quarterly Book Review is by Matt Haig, and it is called The Midnight Library. I do want to give a trigger warning on it. Trigger warning, suicide, and then now I'll read the summary. So, when Nora Seed finds herself in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to make things right. Up until now, her life has been full of misery and regret. She feels she has to let everyone down, including herself, but things are about to change. The books in the Midnight Library enable Nora to live as if she had done things differently. With the help of an old friend, she can now undo every one of her regrets as she tries to work out her perfect life. But things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and soon her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question: what is the best way to live? What I loved about this book is that it's a beautiful concept, like a library that allows you to try on different hats with seemingly no consequences. Like, sign me the F up, like I would love to see what my life would be like if I decided to not be shy and pursue singing, and like, would I become a superstar? Questions like these that we have in our head all the times about different decisions that we make in our life. It was a really cool book to see how it plays out for this character, Nora Seed. Another thing I liked about the book is how it highlights how drastically our lives could change based on the decisions that we make, which, again, going back to our thought processes of how things might be different if I said yes to this. And it explores that in a really interesting way. And the lessons and takeaways I got from that was that, for one, it's never too late. It's never too late to change courses, to switch paths. If you feel like you picked the wrong thing, turn around, try again, And another thing is that this book gave me permission to reinvent myself if I feel like I'm on the wrong path. Like, I felt like it was kind of confirmation that, like, yeah, you might have spent 5 years going to school and doing whatever, to realize that that's not really your thing. That's not really what you want to do. You learn what you like through your experiences, you know what I'm saying? So, like, if you come out on the other side realizing this is not what I want at all, fair enough, change it up and do something different. And so I really like that this book pretty much highlighted that, and that there is no such thing as like a perfect life, just like how there's no such thing as a perfect anything. It is what you make it, and you have inside of you all of the things that you can and want to do in your life. It's up to you to figure out how you're going to incorporate that and make it happen. So I really, really love The Midnight Library. But again, it does have that trigger warning of suicide, so read at your own discretion. With that being said, the challenge for this week is to take the lessons that I've learned from each book and see if you can apply it to your life. I would honestly say that the challenge is to get these books and read them so that you can be the judge yourself and see what other lessons you may pick up on, because there's a lot of other things that you can find in those books, but those were just the things that stuck out to me specifically. But I know that books aren't really for everyone, and I listen to these on audiobooks, so find what works for you. If you want me to spoil it, and you want to kind of just figure out what happens in the books, but you don't want to read it or you don't want to look for it online, hit me up in the DMs. I will gladly let you know what happens in each of these books or whatever book you're interested in. But I just really enjoyed these books and I wanted to share them with you, and I'm glad that I got to do so. So take from these lessons what you will. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to check out my website, MamMaJism.com, to stay updated on new episodes, blog posts, and exclusive features. If you like this episode, don't forget to share it with a friend, as well as leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, like, or follow on all the socials at MamMaJism. MamMaJism is recorded, mixed, and produced by MamMaJ. The meditation music is provided by Chris Collins at indiemusicbox.com. The theme music is provided by DP the Unknown, and the song is titled Here, If. Until we meet again, please be kind to one another. And from the bottom of my heart, I love you.